when Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister, it became very, very obvious very quickly that he had absolutely no control over his party. We saw rebellion after rebellion after rebellion and rebellions about rebellions. you, you know, this is someone who has a massive majority, but he's ruling in such a way as if he has a majority of zero or potentially even less than that. And it just goes to show you the amount of lack of power Sunak has, because we'll be getting into Boris Johnson's intervention at the moment. But bear in mind, it's not just Boris Johnson trying to dictate to Rishi Sunak what he should do. Remember, Boris Johnson's not the Prime Minister anymore. He's just a backbench MP with no ministerial power whatsoever. Meanwhile, you also have Liz Truss, who's created her own growth group coalition to basically try and force Sunak into the exact same disaster policies that she did when when she was Prime Minister. You've also recently had her come out and try and make these big, or at least so-called policy announcements on China that Sunak should again apparently be following, trying to force him into that. And it is very, very unusual that you normally have these types of interventions by former party leaders. Remember, Theresa May, as much as she hated Boris Johnson, and you could see her in some cases staring daggers, into Boris Johnson's back. That was absolutely certain in some prime minister's question times. That's for sure. But you also never really saw her challenge Johnson that much. She didn't. She only really went after him. Certainly after the when Johnson lowered the foreign aid office contribution and was going to sort of fold that office into the foreign office. That's the only really time she really spoke out. But by that point, she'd already been 3 or 4 years in, whereas Sunak's not even a year in office. He's barely even 6 months at this point, and yet his two former predecessors are already challenging him openly to do, shall we say, certain things. So let's go into what Boris Johnson's intervention is on this Northern Ireland Protocol deal, because this is going to kick off. I really do suspect this is going to be a massive kickoff, not only just from Boris Johnson, well, probably led by Boris Johnson, but from what we can or at least know, there is now a potential number of over 100 Tory MPs ready to rebel, and there may be more. There may be a lot more, but as a lot of people have said, we don't know what the details of this agreement that, Sunak and the EU have been sort of negotiating. It's all been very sort of hush-hush, hence why it's all going to be magically revealed on Tuesday. Hence why I've said keep your calendars open for Tuesday, because it's going to be fun. So let's go quickly diving in to find out what this potential mutiny is that Boris Johnson could be fomenting against Sunak. So before we do that, please do remember to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the Pony Club, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, do remember to ring the bell. So let's crack on with this. So this comes from Sky News. The title of Boris Johnson warns Rishi Sunak of a great mistake if he abandons the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill. So Boris Johnson is on a collision course with Rishi Sunak over the Prime Minister's attempts to reach a deal with Brussels over the Northern Ireland Protocol. The former PM is bitterly opposed to Mr. Sunak's plan to abandon the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill, which gives ministers powers to rip up parts of the protocol and ignore EU laws. And bear in mind, this protocol bill would be a massive problem if it passed, which, again, is currently shall we say, in the long grass somewhere, and Sunak has kept it very, very much in there. So if he if this were to pass, this would cause huge problems with certainly the trade agreements, and of course the EU, and not only just the EU, but the US would also certainly look at retaliating against the Northern Ireland Protocol bill if it passed. This is not a reasonable bill. It is absolutely ridiculous that certainly Johnson and the other Brexiteers thought they could just pass this bill, because it goes back to what they originally thought. Oh, we'll pass Boris Johnson's oven-ready Brexit deal. We're not happy with it completely, but that doesn't matter, because after it passes, we can just pass our own bill and just negate the parts that we don't like, which, bear in mind, has been their process going all the way back to David Davis, when he was the first minister in charge of exiting the European Union. He was openly saying, yeah, we can do a deal with the EU, and then afterwards, you know what, we can just change it. They won't mind. They won't care. Of course, that's just completely and absolutely stupid to oh dear, to even think that that might be the case. So, in a move that could trigger a new Tory civil war on Brexit, a source close to Mr. Johnson told Sky News his general thinking is that it would be a great mistake to drop the Northern Ireland Protocol bill. As Mr. Sunak battles to reach a deal over the protocol, senior government sources have claimed that if there is a deal, the bill introduced by Johnson when he was PM would be redundant. If we can find a way to satisfactorily resolve the issues with the protocol, then you wouldn't need the bill, a senior government official said, but we haven't resolved them yet. As well as a potential mutiny by the former PM, senior pro-Brexit Conservative MPs are warning of a massive Tory rebellion if Mr. Sunak's deal keeps the role of the European Court of Justice. I don't see how the European Court of Justice gets removed. The ECJ has been pretty much paramount from the very beginning, and the EU has been very insistent that that's how it is kept, that they are sort of the final arbiter. Now, of course, we have heard that there's going to be maybe a fudge, that maybe it doesn't go straight to the ECJ. Maybe it's a ECJ judge and a Northern, a judge from Northern Ireland that sort of talk about that. But we'll see. So, Mr. Johnson's legislation is currently in the House of Lords, where it is likely to face amendments by the anti-Brexiteer peers, including stripping the ECJ of any jurisdiction over Northern Ireland. So James Dunridge, a former Brexit minister and a leading ally of Mr. Johnson, told Sky News that a number of Tory MPs are prepared to rebel, could be as many as 100. And it won't be the so-called Spartans, said Sir James. There will be a large number of Brexiteers, possibly the majority of the parliamentary party, and potentially running into the treble figures. Yeah, so we're talking a significant rebellion on this. It could get interesting when we see the details. And that's really going to be it. The devil is going to be in the details ultimately. And it could be, Tuesday could be interesting if this is true, that you're not only just talking about 100, but you're talking treble figures. The vast majority of the parliamentary party. That's significant. However, a big Tory rebellion against a deal on the protocol would be unlikely to kill it, since Sir Keir Starmer has let it be known that Labour is prepared to back a deal. So that's the current situation where we are at the moment. Whether this and what is in the deal, we don't know. We still do not know. Like I say, Tuesday is still being billed as the sort of big reveal day, and apparently it is still going to go almost straight into a vote. And I highly suspect that is being done to try and at least see off any potential rebellions, or at least there will be a rebellion, but maybe not as big as they were hoping. But even if this does sort of come to pass and Sunak does pass his bill, he's going to have a massive thorn in his side for the rest of his parliamentary time there. And again, we've said it before, I don't see how Sunak stays when you have this many rebellious MPs And every single week there are more and more of them, more groups, more agitations, more wanting their things. What reason is there to keep Sunak? And this, unfortunately, may strengthen Boris Johnson's hand for his eventual return, because he could play, again, the Brexit card to the, the Conservative Party, going, look, Sunak is betraying Brexit, time to get me back in to, quote, finish Brexit once and for all. That could very well be his path back. And we've heard that Boris is meant to be waiting for the May local elections. Those still do not look good. Numbers, especially as we've seen very recently in a couple of by-elections. Everyone thought 2022 was a crazy year for British politics, but 2023 could be looking potentially to be just as, if not even more crazy for British politics. That is for sure. But as always, like I say, we'll keep you up to date with anything that know as soon as we know it happening. Like I say, Tuesday is being billed as the big day. Although I am still expecting maybe something of this deal being leaked. I'm very surprised at the moment there hasn't been anything. But maybe those leaks are still to come. Who knows? We'll see. But like I say, Tuesday, strap yourselves in. It could get interesting. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.